Hello, my name is Samantha Benitez, and I will be doing the torn paper and pasting. In particular, I want to do the three-dimensional picture. So in the three-dimensional picture, you obviously use paper, but you use different types of paper to create a picture. And so when you create this type of picture, you can use construction paper, newspaper, tissue paper, and basically anything else that you can use. So for mine, I actually wanted to do something that I really like, which is a rose. I chose a rose because my favorite. And so the way that I did this was I used newspaper, old magazines, and I also used tissue paper. And I will show you guys how they do this. I could have done this with construction paper, but I kind of went out on a limb and just kind of tried to use tissue paper, and I actually like it. I actually think it came out pretty well. So if you kind of see, this is tissue paper. If you see from the side, that's kind of how it looks. And yeah, so let's get started. So the little stem here, I actually used old magazine paper that I had, and I just kind of just cut a sheet. So let's try. So whenever you're showing this to your students, you obviously want to show your students to do the hand gestures. The way that I did it was I just twirled the paper around, just to kind of just give it a little edge, I would say. I think this would be a little bit too big for mine, but just cut it off. So you want to curl it and curl it there. And so you'd want to use glue. I actually ran out of the glue stick, so I have to use this type of glue. So you'd want to make a line to glue the paper to it. And you don't want to use too much glue because then you're obviously wasting glue. So we could just put this like that, and it'll kind of just sit there until it decides to glue. And once that's done, you can kind of just wipe off the excess. You can have your students use like the leftover construction paper, to wipe off the leftover glue. And then once this is done, the way that I created my flower is that I used regular wrapping tissue, the ones that you use for birthday gifts. And so what I did was I grabbed the paper and I grabbed it from the bottom here, and then I just kind of just grabbed it from the bottom and just kind of just squished it together. When I created my first one, I did not mean for it to be a flower. Like, it just sort of just formed. So you have your shape there. You grab your glue, you make a circle so that you can paste your flower there. And then you just sort of just let it sit there. You always want to make your students feel comfortable when they're doing theirs. Most of the time kids will want to have theirs look exactly the way that yours looks, or they want to have it perfect. You always just want to make sure that your students feel comfortable and knowing that whatever they created is unique and it's personal, and it's their work, and it's beautiful, obviously. So to make the leaves, I had some green construction paper that I used. I just tear some off here, and I made a strip. Cut off another one. I don't really need that much, but. And then I, once again, just roll. As your kids are doing this, you want to have your kids kind of just feel the way the paper, the way the paper feels. And you want to teach them to manipulate the paper in a way that makes forms, the same way that I grabbed the tissue paper and I made the rose. I mean, that was a different type of hand gesture. I squished the paper. Now, since I want to make the petals, I'm actually twirling the paper and making it, into a petal. And so I would glue, and I would glue here just because that's where my next one is going to be at. And then I would just paste it down there. And this is my other petal. And then I would just also just paste that one there. And so we would just kind of just let that sit. Now if your student wants to do different colors, if they want to add different types of things in there, they could. I'm going to add some grass. We can do that. I think this is pretty cool. Grab paper, kind of just put some here to represent my grass. And here it is. It doesn't exactly look how my first one looked, but it's something. And here's my flower. If you see, it has different types of shapes in it. You can see where it kind of projects out here, and the grass sort of projects out here. The reason why I chose to do this was because, this is something that children see every day in their lives. If you go outside, you see a flower, you see a tree. You could also have the children recreate stuff that they see on their everyday basis. Like, children could recreate a car. They could recreate a house using tissue paper. They could also recreate a tree. And you always want to have high expectations for your children, and always just motivate them to go above and beyond. This was my original one, and I kind of like this one more, simply because I added the grass. So yeah, I just want to just make your children feel comfortable, and that's about it. So allowing your students to do something like the torn paper and pasting really allows your students to use their fine motor skills. It allows them to move around things, and in the process of doing something, they kind of learn something else. They kind of say, hey, I can use construction paper, or I can use tissue paper to do something else. So always be open to trying things. Thanks.